Well, good afternoon to you. It is 3:06 now. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. You can join us today, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Also joining us, Katie Pavlich is here at 3:30. We talked to her about what it's like at the convention. She's been there amidst the chaos. Scott Perry, the congressman, is here at 5 o'clock. He's a combat veteran. We'll get his thoughts on President Trump's chances in his home state of Pennsylvania, and also what he thinks of Tim Walz, that ridiculous human being who just keeps on lying. He's trying to catch up to Joe Biden. He's got a long way to go. Michael Whatley will be with us, the chairman of the RNC. That's at 5:30. A lot to discuss with him today. It is great to be back with you here in Washington, D.C. now. I was broadcasting from Maine yesterday. Had a almost 3-hour conversation with Tucker Carlson, which he's since posted online. It was just great talking to him once again, and a lot of good feedback from that. So thank you for those of you who have gotten a chance to see it, and let me know what you thought. We'll play some of the audio from that conversation coming up later in the program, but I have to say, as I was traveling back from Maine this morning, I had a very early wake-up call this morning, and I started flipping immediately to X to see some of the overnight developments coming out of the Democrat convention, and immediately found out that it turns out Joe Biden concluded his speech practically minutes before I woke up to fly back to D.C. this morning. And I'm saying, oh my goodness. So already the indignity of putting him on the first night of the convention, that's the lowest billing position you could possibly put someone. You put Joe Biden, the sitting president of the United States, on the first night of the convention, not on Thursday. That's the big night. That's the huge one. That's where he's supposed to introduce Kamala Harris. No, they buried this guy on the first night. They gave him a script to read. They had Nancy Pelosi in the crowd mouthing the words, "We love Joe," in a very unenthusiastic way. And they didn't even get him going until 11:30 last night. The media, who are all grumpy about the way that they're being treated, I tell you this all the time, but the press, the only thing that'll get them to break ranks with the Democrats is if their own fragile little egos get in the way. So the media is upset that the DNC is being horribly run because their creature comforts are being jeopardized. Members of the press are being left outside and having trouble getting into the building because they have an incoherent security process. Not to mention, of course, mobs trying to break their way into the convention center in Chicago. It's completely out of control. And so you have all these reporters who've been begrudgingly saying out loud, the RNC was kind of run better than this. It was a lot more organized than this. At least we were able to get inside and see something. It was better than this. And so yesterday, the schedule of events ran completely over. There's no chance that they can take all of the insane people that they have stepping up on that stage and keep them to a schedule. If you're running an event like this, if you've ever been a participant in an event like this, if you're an observer of an event like this, you know that they have people whose job it is to handle the schedule, to make sure everybody stays on time, to locate the people who are supposed to be on stage well in advance of that occurring, get them backstage. If you're going to put makeup on them, put the makeup on, attach the microphones. It's got to be perfect. This is an event that's supposed to be, as it was, televised. You've got to stick to a schedule. You have hard outs. You don't have any wiggle room here. You've got to hit your marks. And just like everything else Democrats touch, they suck. It was completely jacked up from the very beginning to the very end yesterday. Everything from their loony land acknowledgement to their inability to get Joe Biden, a man who can't function after 4 p.m., on stage. They didn't get him on until 11:30 last night. Well outside of what anybody in any level of news and any level of television considers primetime. That address last night was not a primetime address. It was past its prime, just like the guy who gave it. Past its prime. So, and the explanations they're giving for why it took so long for him to get up there and why the schedule was all messed up. James Taylor was supposed to apparently perform last night. They said, sorry, James, you're not performing. They kicked him off the schedule to try and make room to get Biden in. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who routinely suffers apparently these indignities at Democrat conventions. How many times is Debbie Wasserman Schultz going to be upended at a Democrat convention? Remember in 2016, she was fired as the head of the DNC going into the convention. She couldn't even gavel the thing in. And now on the first night of the 2024 convention, they say, sorry, Debbie, we're bumping you because we ran way over schedule. We're not going to be able to get to Biden today. If we have you speak, we'll get to Biden tomorrow. Biden would have been speaking Tuesday morning if they allowed Debbie Wasserman Schultz to speak. The DNC chairman, Jaime Harrison, gave a fairly commonplace, ludicrous explanation for the activities of Democrats. There's Jaime Harrison explaining why it took so long to get to Biden yesterday.
And part of the reason why we ran a little late is because every single person got rounds of applause for what they were saying.
It was clapping. It was too much clapping going on. It wasn't clapping like seals, and we didn't anticipate that much seal clapter. Come on. Utterly preposterous. Utterly preposterous. When Biden finally took the stage, he bumbled his way through his address, and he lied. He lied over and over and over again. Here's just a sampling of the lies he told.
Women are not without electoral.
Sorry, that one's not really a lie. That's just him not being able to speak.
Border encounters have dropped over 50%.
That's a lie.
In fact, there are fewer border crossings today than when Donald Trump left office.
You know, this thing is a lie, too. Biden's administration is importing everybody. In fact, they've developed an app, the CBP One app. It's Uber for illegal immigration, where you can apply before you get to the border. You just fill it out on the app. And suddenly, you know, presto, you're in the United States of America at taxpayer expense. So Biden is increasing the ways for foreign nationals to fraudulently get into our country. And these people who are claiming asylum almost entirely don't qualify for it. But once they're in, it's too late.
Happened. Donald Trump said, and I quote, "There are very fine people on both sides. My God."
Okay, that's the Charlottesville lie, which he stuck to. Biden had one of his own genuine both sides scandals last night. Biden, in an off-script moment, referenced all of the lunatic Democrat mobsters, the pro-Hamas crowd that were trying to bash their way into the arena yesterday. Biden decided to say, you know, all those people outside, they kind of have a point.
Those protesters out in the street, they have a point. A lot of innocent people are being killed. On both sides.
Both sides, says Biden. And there you have Biden, importantly, saying, you know, the Hamas crowd, the Hamas guys, they kind of have a point. So here he is accusing Trump of saying what he's accusing Trump of saying is white nationalists are good people. That is, in every measurable way, a heaping pile of lies. Lies. And everybody knows it. All of these television networks, they know it. And almost none of them allow a fact check on the air to say, Biden lied to you. Biden lied a lot last night. A lot. He ended his career the same way he's conducted it, which is lying nonstop.
That's what he said. That is what he said and what he meant. Oh, from his own chief of staff, a four-star General John Kelly, that Trump, when in Europe, would not go to the grave sites in France. The brave service members who gave their lives to this country. He called them suckers and losers. Who in the hell does he think he is?
Yet another lie.
Who does he think he is?
Yet another lie. The guy who originally wrote that, Jeffrey Goldberg, in the Atlantic, claimed that, there's going to be all this evidence in the coming days to support what I said to you in an anonymous way. That evidence never appeared. Never appeared whatsoever. In fact, if you look at these two men and the way they have treated men and women in uniform, Donald Trump has treated them with immense reverence and, in fact, has earned a lot of respect from people who have worn the uniform for our country. Meanwhile, what has Biden done? Biden stared at his watch as 13 American service members' bodies came in to Dover during what should have been a dignified transfer of remains. and he outraged the families of the people who felt abandoned by him, who blamed him for how things went down in Afghanistan. This is preposterous projection on the part of Biden, but par for the course.
They're the ones we're going to bring back. That's not hyperbole. It's because Medicare no longer has to pay those exorbitant prices to the big pharma.
He's like, once again, just stumbling all over the place. And any situation where you hear Biden claiming that he's really sticking it to, quote, big pharma, you should know he is flatly lying to you on that subject. Nobody has enriched big pharma like Biden and the people around him. They have given immense amounts of your money to that industry in the form of all of the mandated COVID jabs that they put into every American they could possibly get their hands on. That was all designed to enrich big pharma. What do you think all of this transgender stuff is doing? All the people who are being subjected to chemical and physical alterations, who benefits from that? Oh, that's right, big pharma. That's what Biden and Harris stand for.
Republicans, Democrats, we saved democracy in 2020, and now we must save it again in 2024.
That's not subtle. That's not subtle at all. Saving democracy means you have to give power to Democrats. He even said last night, and then we've got to preserve it, which is another way of saying make permanent the power of Democrats.
No, we have 1,000 billionaires in America. He's promising a bloodbath.
Those are two cuts put together. He did say that we have, what did he say? 1,000 trillionaire billionaires in America. So whatever. And then he finishes it off in this package. And by the way, my thanks to Colin Rugg on X for putting all of these together, because he very rapidly condensed all of these crazy moments from the speech. There were a lot to choose from.
Billionaires in America. He's promising a bloodbath if he loses, in his words.
No, he said that the auto industry would suffer an economic bloodbath. And any news outlet that even has like a tiny, tiny, tiny little ounce of respect has already admitted this. That no, Trump did not say that he was calling for civil war. He wasn't saying that there was going to be a violent bloodbath should he lose the election. He said that the economic consequences for the auto industry would be devastating. He used a pretty common metaphor for economic devastation. It'd be a bloodbath. And Biden can't stop lying. What Biden did last night did not amount to dignity. It wasn't dignified in any meaningful sense. Democrats were trying to frame last night's event as him being selfless, him stepping down, him loving his country. It was so dignified. How wonderful. The lunatics who were covering it yesterday, they all got the same talking points. They all said it was electric. It was so electric to see how all of this went down, which is ridiculous. Ridiculous. Here it is. Listen, Bill D'Agostino over at the Media Research Center, he surveyed all of the various news outlets, and here's what they were saying last night.
It was though someone had plugged in a cable, a current was connected, and there was pure electricity in the room.
Thank you for sharing with us some of the electricity.
The energy is incredibly electric.
You know, it was just electric.
As sort of electric as I've ever seen it. It was absolutely electric.
Talk to me about the atmosphere in here. Is it electric?
Excitement. It is electric.
Senator Schumer wasn't lying when he was saying that there's a lot of electricity and excitement right now.
So it's incredibly electric.
It's electric. Something just got uncorked.
It's electric.
Room in Chicago, quite electric tonight.
Last night was electric.
It'll be electric.
Electrifying.
The electrification.
There's electricity in this room, there's energy in this room, and there is enthusiasm in this room.
A lot of electricity and energy in this hall.
I mean, come on. You know, you hear stuff like this, and you're like, okay, can we all be honest here? Democrats write the news, right? You know this, right? Democrats write the news. What was the talking point in the weekend? Joy, 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 joy. There's so much joy, 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 joy. And then this week, it's electric. What's the one that we did a couple weeks ago? Weird, 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 weird. They just repeat. They repeat. It's an echo chamber. That's what you're witnessing. And and a rigging operation, I should point out. An election rigging up. To the phones we go. Ann is calling in from Alexandria, line 2. Ann, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Thanks, Vince. When you were talking about the suckers and losers lie that they spread about Trump, people forget, maybe people didn't know, that back in the 90s after Desert Storm, New York threw a parade for the military, to welcome them back. And Trump was horrified. He thought the parade was very insufficient to honor them. So he actually organized a second parade that he paid for to make sure they were honored correctly. So New York had a second parade because of Donald Trump that he paid for to honor the military. Does that sound like somebody that would call them suckers and losers?
No, it does not. That sounds like a pretty selfless act, actually. He's not.
And I would tell you, I mean, there's so many. I'm so mad at Jennifer Hudson for the selfless things that Trump did for her, protected her family when they were targets for assassination, had them all move into the Chicago property, gave an entire floor of the hotel in total security. So in 2016, she supported him. In 2020, because of pressure, she didn't. He saved the lives of her family and didn't charge her a cent. So I will never forgive her.
Jennifer Hudson, the singer you're referencing.
Yes.
And she had some of her family was actually murdered, right? Quite violently.
He called her and said, "Bring your family," and he gave them an entire floor of his hotel with security to protect them.
Yes.
And that's how she pays him back. I mean,
notice, Ann, that I don't know if I knew this story before, but you're one of the few who's even able or out there telling it. Like the press does not tell this story, and we all know why.
Yeah. And there are so many other things. And I've actually talked to the Trump campaign about taking Glenn Kessler's 30,000 lies and to go back through, because as you know, many of the things they said were lies turned out to be true. So somebody has to go back through that list and annotate and prove that they were wrong about him all along.
Right. Fact check the Washington Post and demonstrate that they were lying about all of these things Trump said. It's a pretty common experience, Ann, I think you and I keep having, which is like, oh, Trump was right about that. Yeah. That keeps happening. At some point, kind of admit he's kind of on the right track, isn't he? All right. Thank you, Ann. I appreciate that call. As always, let me tell you another great caller is coming up. Katie Pavlich will be with us in just moments. We'll talk to her about what she's witnessing in Chicago, where the murders continue, by the way, as the DNC chaos is going on inside that arena. Good afternoon to you. 3:35 now, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, Congressman Scott Perry of Pennsylvania is with us at 5 o'clock. And at 5:30, the head of the RNC, the chairman there, Michael Whatley, will join us. You can talk to us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. The Democrat convention in Chicago isn't disorganized. There's just too much clapping.
Part of the reason why we ran a little late is because every single person got rounds of applause for what they were saying.
Jaime Harrison, the DNC chairman, lying about why everything was so chaotic yesterday. They couldn't even get to Joe Biden until 11:30. His speech didn't end until well after midnight. A total disaster. Here with more perspective on what's happening in Chicago, Katie Pavlich joins us. She's the editor over at Town Hall and a Fox News contributor. Katie, so good to talk to you. Thank you.
Hey, good to be on the show. Thanks so much, Vince.
Give me a comparison. What's it like at the DNC versus the RNC?
So there's a few things we can compare. First of all, the logistics of how people are getting in and out of the convention center are a total nightmare. The security lines have been very long, hours long, actually, which is why a lot of the delegates and volunteers couldn't get into the United Center yesterday until an hour and a half after the event started. So things are supposed to start, you have, special reports starting at 6 p.m. and usually there's a lot of things happening in the arena with people cheering. It was pretty quiet until like 7:30. So that's an issue. I think it's kind of a reflection of how Democrats, run the government as well. So you can take it.
Do you think the people there recognize that this is a big metaphor for why Democrats shouldn't be in charge?
The people there, no. I mean, they think everything's going fine, right? But these are people who think the DMV is a good place to go for lunch.
Sure.
Right? But then in terms of the feeling, right, the vibes that we keep hearing all about, the RNC was incredible for lots of reasons. It was well organized. The campaign going into it was very disciplined. And of course, you had the president who survived an assassination attempt, and everybody was just really excited to support him and get him onto the stage every single night. And everyone was just happy, and it was genuine, and the party was united in a way that didn't have to be forced. Even Nikki Haley showed up in a genuine way to say that her delegates should vote for Donald Trump. Here you have a lot of fakery going on, and you were just explaining how, Joe Biden, the sitting president of the United States, who was forced out, he's not voluntarily leaving, despite what he says, despite what Democrats are saying, and they didn't put him on until 11:30. Talk about some disrespect and lack of respect for yourself as the sitting president at the DNC, saying, yeah, I'll just wait until all of the primetime speaking slots are over, and then I'll go on as you guys shuffle me outside the door. And just being in the room, listening to what people were saying, and also listening to what people were saying in interviews on television and radio, the continued basically sucking up to Joe Biden as, the historic president who's done so many things, and he's doing an amazing job. We just want him to leave now.
Yeah.
It's really fake, and it just feels very forced.
Well, even if they had stuck to the schedule, the idea that you put the sitting president of the United States on Monday night is humiliating.
Yeah.
And
right.
My sense was that the theme yesterday was, let's get this over with. Let's just get past this.
I mean, if they really cared about respecting Joe Biden, they would have had him introduce Kamala Harris to literally pass the torch, right? To say, here I am, I'm stepping aside, here's the next president of the United States. They didn't do that. They put him on Monday night, shoved him out the door, and now he's going away. Well, at the same time, you're having the Kamala Harris campaign trying to distance themselves from Bidenomics, even though it was the Harris-Biden administration agenda, and everything on whitehouse.gov says exactly that. She was sent out all over the country to sell that economic agenda. But also they're not defining her and being particularly vague because they don't want people to rely on her far left record that she ran on in 2019 and 2020, which Americans don't agree with. So what I've taken so far after night one is that the left has gobbled up the Democratic Party based on the speeches last night. They've shoved Joe Biden out the door, and they're going to hide just how far left they have become until Election Day, when they can implement their policies if they win.
So my impression from afar is that to the extent that I'm witnessing affection for Kamala Harris, that it mostly has to do with they're super relieved that Joe Biden's no longer the nominee. It feels like very skin deep. I don't sense any sort of deep affection for her or some sort of policy basis or some record of success that they're reflecting on. What are you sensing in Chicago from the people who are actually attending this thing?
We see a lot of Madam President sweatshirts and T-shirts, but again, it has a different feeling than the RNC did in terms of the unity. They've decided that this is the binary choice that they have. Maybe Kamala Harris wasn't the person they wanted to replace Joe Biden.
Right.
There's a lot of people in the arena who wanted Joe Biden to stay, including a lot of people on the DNC Rules Committee who kept enforcing up to the very minute, right before Biden resigned from the campaign, in a tweet, in a letter on a Sunday afternoon, that he earned the 14 million votes, that the rules were the rules, and they weren't going to change them just because they felt like they were going to lose, and that they needed to work harder on that campaign trail to win those voters. So there is this just kind of like forced nature of people are not happy with the way things went down, but while Democrats argue all the time that they're the party of norms, they're willing to break all of their own rules and destroy the norms for the sake of politics. And that's exactly what they're doing here.
Now, meanwhile, outside of the convention, and apparently I think somewhat inside, there is the Hamas-surrection continues, because yesterday you had all these people blasting through the barricades trying to get into the arena. I understand there have been some smaller demonstrations within the arena itself. How disruptive is this, and how hard are Democrats working to try and keep the mob at bay?
Well, the city of Chicago has, they have all the police out. So Chicago's been cleaned up where the delegates are walking around, where the media is. So Chicago looks nice. There's lots of barriers protecting the hotels where the important people are staying.
Right.
They've done that. At the same time, you have this mob of pro-Hamas agitators who have come out every night. I saw them on Sunday night when I was walking around downtown, and they're appeasing them by allowing them to do what they're doing while they reject permit applications from pro-Israel groups who wanted to also have their own protests. So at the same time, they're saying we respect the First Amendment. We really want people to exercise that. They're not allowing pro-American, pro-Israel protesters to show up.
Yes.
They're keeping them away. But in terms of the agitation that's going on, they've been able to keep things pretty contained. Yesterday, they broke through a couple of the barriers. But last night, in Joe Biden's speech that a lot of people didn't see because it was past midnight, he said that the protesters outside have a point.
Here's that moment. Here's that moment. I just want people to hear it first and then get more of your assessment. Here's Biden last night.
Those protesters out in the street, they have a point. A lot of innocent people are being killed on both sides.
Those protesters have a point. And what did you think of that?
Well, to his statement about lots of innocent people are dying. Well, yes, that's because of Hamas and what they did on October 7th and continue to do by using human shields in the Gaza Strip and holding hostages and taking them hostage. Every single civilian death is on them. But in terms of what the people outside the arena are saying, these are not people out there calling for a two-state solution. I mean, I went to go see it myself, right? They're holding signs that say, globalize the intifada. What does that mean? What does intifada mean? It means going into nightclubs, cafes, bars, buses, and blowing up innocent people. That's what that means. They're calling for violence against innocent people, specifically Jews, but generally people who just in the West and who are pro-Western, pro-American.
They're burning American flags,
They're burning American flags. I mean, I was also at the Union Station riot that broke out when they literally took down the American flags outside Union Station in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, and hoisted up the flag, the same flag that Hamas flies in the Gaza Strip as they were attacking innocent Israelis and taking Americans hostage, which, by the way, there are still 5 of them being held. And so for him to say that they have a point, they don't have a point. The people here outside in the DNC in Chicago are violent. They believe in terrorism as a means to get your political goals achieved. And for the president to endorse that really just shows you, again, how much the left has control of the party and the uncommitted vote that they're very worried about on November 5th.
And Katie Pavlich, you're not distorting their views at all because they're proudly saying it. Here's one of these pro-Hamas people telling Fox News yesterday, I support Hamas.
Every Palestinian support Hamas, not just me. Every Palestinian support Hamas.
Do you support October 7th?
Who?
October 7th.
October 7th? Yes, I do. What's wrong with October 7th? You tell me.
Women and children.
What?
To murder.
What is this?
Yeah, so that's the audio. So this is not like, we're sussing this out or we're misinterpreting what they're doing.
Complicated.
They're outright saying it, and I noticed Fox is one of the only places I can get audio like that.
Yeah, isn't that quite interesting? I just find it so amazing that the left and Joe Biden in his speech, talked about Charlottesville, repeated the Charlottesville lie, condemns white supremacy, great, but at the same time endorses a different kind of supremacy, Islamic supremacy, anti-Semitic terrorism happening outside the United Center, and somehow they're able to get away with that narrative where they tolerate some of it for the sake of politics in Michigan and Minnesota, but use it in a false and again, lying way against President Donald Trump.
Do you expect, I know in politics it's always impossible to really predict these things, but, coming out of the Republican convention, I thought that went excellent. I really did think it went well. Just to the extent that I can disconnect myself from the politics of it, I thought objectively it was a very well-run convention. Do you think that this convention so far, and it's only really one day, part 2 has begun today, and today is hilariously chaotic as well already. Do you think this is going to help Kamala's campaign?
I'm not sure. I mean, it already feels like it's been a week. And like it's slogging on.
Yeah.
There's not a ton of excitement surrounding what's happening. Again, I think it's very difficult to manufacture genuine excitement for a candidate and a party. Now, don't get me wrong, Democrats are the Olympians of voting. Early voting in Pennsylvania starts in September. So I was talking about how the election's really in September. So, we'll see. And the media has been so overwhelmingly pro-Kamala. But when it comes to the economy, when it comes to the issues that people are concerned about, she's not really making a lot of ground on that against Trump in the places where it matters. And the polling is still in his favor. So she's going to have to pull something really incredible on Thursday. And just given her lack of talent as a politician and her charisma, not really sure it's going to pay off.
I really hope that she gets a lot of control over the speech. I really hope. I hope right now she's fighting for that. Like she has speechwriters all around her like, no, we'll take care of it. No. Let Kamala be Kamala. That's my argument. I really want her to just be herself and stop. They've got her in a cage, Katie Pavlich. They should really just let her free, you know?
Well, they should, but I think she's too terrified to be free, which is so funny. It's like she continues to put out these statements, reversing her positions from her 2020-2019 campaign.
Yeah.
And as a woman, from my perspective, I'm just curious if the woman who wants to be the first female president of the United States is going to stand up as an independent, strong voice.
Yes.
And speak for herself, or she's going to continue to allow her male aides to speak on her behalf.
Yeah, what? She's letting men speak for her? What is that? That's awful. Don't let a man write your words for you.
To me.
Yeah, I don't want any mansplaining. I need a strong woman up there Thursday night. Katie, lastly, on this issue of whether women even exist, how are the lines for the gender-neutral bathrooms at the DNC?
Well, there's a long line for the gender-neutral bathrooms because everyone can use those. As usual, of course, the patriarchy continues because there's no line for the men's restrooms, which are labeled men's restrooms.
Is it really? I saw some of this. The Examiner has some coverage of it. I guess there is at least like one or two women's rooms, but they're like single stall. But the public women's room has been relabeled the gender-neutral bathroom. Is that true?
I mean, I've seen this online. I have not seen it in person.
Okay,
so I will look today and see. I will fact check and see.
Okay,
but
it seems very believable.
The women's restrooms have been erased. Just like the policies of the Biden-Harris administration.
I know, and it's at least over the last decade, I keep seeing this. I was at the 2016 Democrat convention, and they had gender-neutral bathrooms set up. The stadium doesn't actually have them. The Democrats come in and they relabel the bathrooms.
They print signs. Yeah, they print signs and tape them over. It's really amazing.
It's just as preposterous as everything else they're doing.
There's also people policing the trash disposal as well. They're making sure everybody knows how to recycle and how to put things in the trash.
They have hall monitors for the trash at the DNC?
They do. Yes, they do.
Par for the course.
All right. Making sure everybody knows how to recycle.
Katie Pavlich, thank you very much. I appreciate it as always. Great to talk to you. Good luck.
Thanks, Vince. Thanks. Bye.
All right, let's go to the phones. I've got Chris in Marshall calling in, line one. Hello, Chris. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hey there.
The listening audience for Mr. Coglianese, listen. The vegetant is inconsequential. Gondola is irrelevant. We are blessed with a pantheon of great minds that have caliber and wit and intellect. Among this, what I would call the Mount Rushmore of great minds are Victor Hansen, Tucker Carlson, Vince Coglianese, Jordan Peterson, and Mike Rowe. And you, sir, after that interview that I just spent the best 3 hours watching with Tucker during the noon hour today, I implore everybody in your listening audience at 6:05, don't miss a minute of Vince, but at 6:05, go over to Tucker Carlson and watch that fantastic interview where you, sir, had this banter and this natural flow where the interviewer became the interviewee, and it was seamless, and you shocked and you drew things out of Tucker that he never realized.
You know, I really appreciate all this. I'm very grateful that you liked the interview. A couple quick things. One, you mentioned a number of names that you suggested that I might be on some sort of Mount Rushmore with. Please don't. I was like, Victor Davis Hansen, that guy, I'm looking up at him for sure. Whatever the metaphor is, I'm staring up at that guy. The other piece here is listen to the Mark Levin program. Do not evade the great one this evening. I have to tell you that. But make sure that somewhere in there, if you want to follow Chris's advice, please put it, save it. You can do it anytime. It's video on demand. Chris, thank you. I appreciate that. That's really nice of you. And you deserve a medal for watching the whole thing. It is a long haul interview. We did go the distance. That's it's
an honor to say I knew you win.
Well, thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. Yeah, that's the longest. I was saying we need to call the Guinness people. I think that is the longest interview that he's done for his podcast, which, by the way, as of like 2 weeks ago, was #1. I think it was #1 in the country. Cool. I'll play some audio from that coming up. Also, we're going to have some laughs, some chuckles at the insane asylum that is the Democrat convention. That's ahead.